I could not sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd feel my feet going over my head. The only thing I remember thinking of was, oh, fancy telling my mother on Christmas Day that I'm dead. Mount Ruapehu is New Zealand's largest active volcano. Its crater lake has a history of overflowing, resulting in large layhards being released down the side of the mountain and into the Wangahu River. In 1923, a layhar weakened a pillar holding the Tangiwai rail bridge, and it was a matter of time before another powerful layhar would wipe the pillar out altogether. As it turned out, a powerful layhar was released on the day I boarded a train bound for Auckland. The only time I think about it is when somebody asks about it or brings it up now. Jenny Smith and I were at school together. We were boarding in the hut. They had a property up at Whitianga, and so we were all going up there for a holiday. So we decided to go by train to Auckland and then get a bus from Auckland over to Whitianga. Jenny's mother went down to get our tickets and got a second class seat, but then my mother said no, we weren't going all the way to Auckland second class. So George, Jenny's father, who was a real charmer, went down and charmed the girl at the booking office and managed to get us 2 seats in first class. Jenny got on in Wellington and then I met her in Palmerston North. The crater lake got much higher than it normally was, and it burst out through an ice tunnel and out the side of the mountain and flew down the side of the mountain to the Wangahu River. Yeah, and basically it was very uneventful. We talked and talked and talked about all the clothes we'd made ourselves. And it just was a huge wall of water. They told us it was at least 40 feet high. I think at Waiuru we decided it was time to eat our chicken that we were going to eat at midnight, and so we ate our chicken. It just must have just burst out with such force. Amazing really that nobody heard it. We just decided to put the lights off and settle down for the night. When there were these 3 enormous jolts that sort of threw us out of the seat. Jenny had looked out the window and thought she saw Lake Taupo, and I knew we were nowhere near Lake Taupo, and I suddenly thought I couldn't think of any large expanse of water, because there's certainly a large expanse of water around us. And I said to Jenny, I thought that the train had probably derailed. And all of a sudden the door at the back end of the carriage burst open and Cyril Ellis leapt in and said, everybody out. I was back at our seat when the carriage actually started to move, and what we didn't know was that we were sitting on rails and there was no bridge underneath us. So with the weight of the carriage, the rails gradually must have started to bend, and it just tipped us headlong into the river, and we certainly rolled down with the water, with the mud, huge blocks of rock and stuff, and but we were inside the carriage, so had no idea what was going on at all. But Cyril Ellis and the guard had broken one of the windows in the carriage, and they were pulling people out through the window, and the carriage was sort of on a bit of a lean, so we were sort of sitting on the roof and sort of sitting on the side of the carriage a bit. And well, the people that had got out were. Anyway, they finally put their head down and said, "Is there anyone else in there?" And I said, "Yes, there's me." And they said, "Is that Dinah?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Thank Christ for that," because Jenny was sitting on the roof telling them all the time, "You'll have to get Dinah out. You'll really have to get Dinah out." Bless her. And but I couldn't move because the seats had sort of collapsed on me when the train hit. Our carriage sort of fractured and the two seats sort of came close together, and I was stuck there. So anyway, they came out and got me out, and some people from the road made a human chain across to the carriage, and when they made a human chain across, they got us off the carriage roof, and we held on to them as we went and got over to the land. But nobody actually came out to help us or do anything. And but this little Down syndrome boy who brought us out these Pascal sweets, he was the only one who approached us, and I guess, thinking back, we must have looked like somebody from outer space because we were covered in mud. But then the ambulances from Waiouru Military Hospital arrived, and it was tearing back to the hospital when our ambulance went round a bend, but somebody from the road must have been coming the other way to have a look at the accident, and we just clipped the side of our ambulance, and we just fell sort of up a bank. It was a cutting, we were going through a cutting, and our ambulance ended up on a funny slant up the bank. And so we all climbed out of that, sat on the side of the bank. I still can't remember whether they righted the ambulance or whether we went in another ambulance. I think they probably managed to right the ambulance. Anyway, we went off and we ended up in Waiouru Military Camp Hospital. At that stage we had no idea how many people had been killed. We had no idea what had happened. One of the things that the government did was declare the accident an act of God, which saved them having to pay out any money. It saved anybody any insurance companies having to pay out any money. And we never got refunded for our tickets. They did ask us to send the tickets to them, which we did, and we never got them back. We never got refunded for them. An old friend of ours asked me to write a letter. He said, "When you're awake in the middle of the night, write me a letter and tell me everything that happened." So I did, and then years later his family sent the letter back to me, and the letter starts with, "The sound of twisting steel was terrifying, but to this day I cannot remember that noise at all." But the only long-term effects that it has had on me is if I get a fright, for instance, if there was an earthquake right now and I got a fright, I could smell sulphur. Well, of course you can't smell sulphur, it's all in your head, but there was huge, the smell of sulphur at the accident was just huge. I had the most terrible thing of claustrophobia, and it was a long time before I could ever get into lifts or do anything. Today I can, because I know I've got to get into lifts. I've still never been up the main trunk line on a train. I don't know if I ever will.